I am interested in EV pilot programs that are very small and for, as pilots do, kind of test the waters, and can be after the fact examined as an experiment to see what was the effect. Was it worthwhile? Can we learn anything from it? Was it a good idea? For example, in Durham, Roy Cooper initiated a very small handful of school buses will be electric vehicles, which and a lot of people were mad about this for all kinds of reasons, and some of them were legitimate. But I felt like the example some people gave of like, oh well, they're gonna not working if it gets cold, just like it happened in Chicago in the worst of winter, or that it's gonna the kids are not going to be able to get to school because they're stop halfway there because they run out of battery. And those two particular claims are completely bogus from the research that I've done. To get into one of them as to so you see that I'm not making that up. For example, with the Chicago thing, it's like Chicago is way colder. First of all, we're living in the South, and
I live
secondly,
there. So I moved here.
and secondly, if in the way that this pilot program is like a small percentage is EV, no one said that you have to replace all of the school buses with EVs. Having options is nice. It means you can hedge your bets. You don't have to put all your eggs in a basket. Which reminds me, my policy on sources of energy, that like we're better off when we have lots of them. That instead of like the left wing who tend to be very hateful, well, very disinterested, I'll say, to be kind. Like anything from coal to natural gases, like all of that stuff. You have a very deep like skepticism and wanting to get rid of it quickly. But also oftentimes nuclear. Libertarians tend to love nuclear, me especially. Whereas I'm very open to innovation, lack of regulation, to an extent. Of course, we need safety. I wouldn't ever advocate for like a nuclear power plant that's so deregulated that it goes off. But they don't anymore. That's such a big misconception.
Gen 3 and Gen 4 are safer than.
Because innovation has happened and it has made nuclear power like so much better. We don't even know because we're still using very old nuclear power plants. They're more dangerous than the ones that we want to build but can't build because we're not pro-enterprise here as much as we ought to be. Which is something I think libertarians can help us do is to embrace innovations and improvements that is so hard to do when there's so much red tape and so forth. But the long story short, I do think we need to have a lot of different energy sources and openness to that, and to trust that, as has happened throughout the last 100 or more years, that the bad non-renewable things are going to naturally fade away because equal support is higher than ever. That because the culture moved, not because the government did things. The government tends to respond to things. It has a hard time catching up with people sometimes. And so I'm confident that these things will go away on their own. Me more than most libertarians, I'm okay with pushing it a teeny bit, like to help along culture, just a teeny bit, but nowhere near as much as the left wing does.